For Integrity Capital, talking about the commercial participants, and specifically in this video, we will discuss specifically banks. So the commercial real estate lending industry is very complex. It has a lot of people that touch the file from start to finish, all the way from the lender to the borrower to the attorney to the appraiser to the third-party phase one company to the title company. The list can go on and on. So there's a lot that goes into understanding how this world works. So that's really what we're going to do, is give you this 30,000 foot view of these different players within the industry. So banks, again, it can be complicated, and they contain a lot of different revenue sources. Banks will generate revenue, specifically in our world, from lending money to the individuals that come in. That could be just consumer loans to all the way to commercial loans and everything in between, mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just going to talk about how they generate revenue and the pertinence it has to you for the commercial industry. It's not all inclusive. There's a lot to discuss, but banking institutions, really, if you think about it, they take in money that you and I deposit in the form of CDs, which are certificates of deposit, savings, money market, and checking accounts. That's how they get their money. It's almost like if somebody raises money, this is how they do it, by taking in these forms of deposits. And to do this, what do? They offer, in consideration to the client, some form of interest to pay back. So, hey, we're going to pay you, and believe me, it's not a lot, on the balance. The longer the money is locked up, like a CD, the higher the rate typically is going to be. The bank actually, once they take the money in, funny enough, it's actually an obligation or a liability or a debt to them. So they owe you money. And then they turn around and take that money and they actually lend that back out. So when a bank lends money, it does so really at a higher interest rate or some interest rate differential that is above the funds that are deposited. So the way they determine this is that it's called the bank's cost of funds. So this is dictated by the interest that they pay, but it also is dictated on their own internal cost of funds. So the branch they have, the overhead they have in there, the employee expense, et cetera, et cetera. So that all comes into their cost of funds. They profit really from the difference in the rate on what it is that they pay versus what they collect. So another way the bank earns revenue is that it charges the public fees. If you've ever noticed that, for the loans it originates. So whenever we book a loan, they're going to charge an origination fee, and then it comes for processing, underwriting, registration, doc prep, credit reports, etc. There's just all these different fees that they could charge, as well as the deposits, for them to be a sustainable business model. So once they've successfully originated, the bank may choose to service the loan. So they book the loan on there. So if they end up doing let's say they buy, you buy a building and go in and get a loan from them for your business, then they may choose to service the loan. So they keep it on their balance sheet in-house, and then they service it. So, and then they might make an interest rate spread as the payments they collect. So they will actually keep that and make the monthly payments that they receive every month and make premiums on that as well. Or they could sell the loan. So there are some instances where a bank will sell the loan off to a third party in what they call the secondary market. And then they can realize a premium for that in the marketplace, where they might book it for $1 million and then they sell it for $1,050,000. And so they make a premium on that by selling it off if somebody really wants the loan and needs the deposits or loans. So the higher the rate and quality of the loan, all other factors sort of being equal relative to the market rate and quality, the larger the premium if they sell the actual loan. So, and another reason to sell the loan is to free up capital to make another loan and realize another set of fees. So, for example, if I'm a borrower and I come in, each bank has a lending limit. So there's only so many loans they can do per borrower. So let's just say it's $10 million. So as soon as they hit the 10 million with that borrower, they are capped. So what they have to do is either participate with another lender to do the loan because they're tapped out, or they could sell some of those loans to free up more capacity to do loans. So that just is a little insight on how that those transactions work. So how does this really pertain to the commercial industry? Well, you need to understand that the motivations of the bank is to successfully navigate the lending process. So we're going to start with the position of business development officer. Sometimes they're going to be known as a commercial lender or vice president or a business development officer, but it just has different variations as you'll see. In many cases, they are rewarded from bringing in personal and business deposit accounts for the client, as well as they typically are salaried position for this person, individual, or they may not, including a portion of the potential income. So if they book the loan, they might make some additional fee on top of that as well. And this is really typically your first point of contact when you come to the bank. And this is the person you're going to explain the transaction to. You're going to get some feedback from them and maybe send them a summary of the transaction. And then they're going to evaluate the package and request any additional information that they think is missing to make a decision. They will then give you their opinion of the deal or not. Their institution is interested in looking at your transaction further, whether they want to go forward. If they do decide to do that, they will take it to an underwriter or committee or somebody that has the authority to issue what we typically call a letter of interest or an expression of interest, sometimes an application. And it's vital that you assess the quality of the business development officer you're dealing with, because they're not all created equal. We're seeking people that are smart, humble, quick to respond, and a deep understanding of the banks. A lot of times you can get someone who just gives you, oh yeah, we want to get the deal. The reason why is because every week, typically, they have a sales meeting to see how many transactions they have in. So some might be motivated just to get you in the door as opposed to really seeing if it's something that fits. So assuming that you do all of that, you get an LOI, so a letter of interest, then you're on to the next phase. So you'll generally get that signed with our fee agreement, then you supply the bank with the contents of the full package. And then you'll get third-party fees or registration costs from the borrower. The appraisal's typically ordered after you get to an approval, but they're trying to get to final underwriting, and then they're going to commence. So the loan file will go to an underwriter, a processor, etc. So the underwriter, generally in a bank, is the one who decisions the loan. They'll give it the final review and await arrival from the appraisal. So this is the person getting the package ready to send to a full committee. So they're the ones preparing it, getting questions answered, getting every little nut and cranny on it to be ready to go into a committee where they'll make the decision of whether they want to proceed or not. Now, the loan committee will generally speaking is a group of senior bank officers or a board will meet to go over certain numbers of transactions for the given week. At the end, they will generally vote to decide if your loan should receive full approval or not. Now, in some instances, you'll notice that it might not be a full committee. It might just be a couple of people that might sign off on it, a little less formal. But there's generally some person who's going to sign off, or a group of persons. And so it's critical that your loan file is really at the quality, the best quality. So if they have to work hard to understand the loan, otherwise they're going to decline it. So, that's sort of how it goes. BDO first, you typically get an LOI, and you get the underwriter to prepare. You go to the loan committee. And then, some small institutions, you might just deal with like a chief credit officer who's the one who makes the decisions and is part of the committee sometimes. Another party or individual is the processor. They're the ones that typically handle prior to going to underwriting. They're the ones that are getting documentation. So they're a lot of times they're just gathering stuff. They're not really involved in the decision process, but they're just gathering a lot of data. So that could transpire. It's important you understand their process. And so, that's really, generally speaking, how, the general flow of the lender. They will have at times a closer. So there'll be somebody towards the end who is handling all of the closing items, handling title, handling getting documents issued and sent out. So you can be rest assured that's probably another party that will be involved in the process. So again, this is the commercial participants for a bank within the process